Hello and welcome to Make Ideas Reality, the podcast. This is a podcast dedicated to everyday creative heroes making their ideas reality that wouldn't necessarily get their story heard. I hope to inspire you with their stories, give you courage to leave your comfort zone, think big, and be the badass creator you are meant to be. I'm Justin White, aka The Garage Avenger. Let's do this! Hello and welcome to episode 23 of Make Ideas Reality. Houston, we have a maker. Today's guest has rocketed herself onto the podcast. That was so bad.
Oh my God.
From working with NASA's space shuttle program to becoming a mother of two, then inconsequently finding joy in belting red hot iron with hammers. Welcome to the show, Lindsay Murphy. Are you okay?
Oh my God.
Have I killed you?
Yeah, I'm dead. Oh, thank you for that intro. I can tell you put a lot of effort into it, so I just want to encourage you in that. It was really awesome.
That was probably the worst intro I've ever made, but it was so bad that I had to do it.
Now I can't stop laughing, which is probably a good thing. So more laughing, less talking.
Now, that was a bit of a interesting intro, and there are probably a lot of people that are listening now who know who you are, but there could be some people who don't. So I thought I'd just give you a little chance as we open the show to tell the people a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Lindsay Murphy. I'm on Instagram. I'm known as Lindsay Creative, and I'm a maker. I'm an artist. I do metalworking and blacksmithing, and I'm based in Houston, Texas. That's in the United States. For those who may not know where Texas is, I don't judge. But and I have two kids that I'm homeschooling right now. So during this the COVID thing, so I don't normally homeschool. So that's made life extra interesting at the moment. And so that's a little bit about me.
So you're properly now a full-time stay-at-home mum.
I guess so. If that's the
slash
definition
school
of that.
teacher.
Slash nurse, slash a psychologist, slash chef, slash deck painter. I don't know. I could keep on going, but that will get really boring fast.
This is an interesting thing because I think, I respect you in some ways, especially even more because of the whole COVID-19 thing. I've had my two kids at home for now 5 weeks and it drives me bonkers. So you also being, generally you're a stay-at-home mum and you have your creative stuff on the side, right?
Full for the most part. My kids normally they go to public school here, and so during that time when they're in school, I work out of my garage, or I'm going over to our makerspace and I'm working on some blacksmithing stuff, painting, normally just that kind of stuff. So normally I'm working on commission work. That's primarily what keeps me busy.
Yeah, because I think I quite admire you, because often I feel like you're kind of a woman that's defying the status quo, because there's not many women that I know of that are kind of belting steel with hammers and then at the same time doing beautiful paintings and intricate jewelry and things like that. So I quite admire that in you. I think it's something that I don't often see. So I just want to give you a high five for that.
Oh, thank you. Virtual high five too.
Yeah. Um, let's talk about your journey, Lindsay. Where did this all start? Where did all this creative stuff come from? And what got you to where you are now?
Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. My mom is an art teacher, and my dad was a chemist, and they just really had interesting backgrounds when they were growing up. My mom, her dad, or my grandfather, he was a welder, and he also dabbled in blacksmithing. Like we actually still have some of his metal sculptures that he made.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
I never met him. He passed away before I was born. But he always, in their barn, they would have like just lumber and metal and all sorts of things the kids could just go in, pull whatever they wanted, and just make something. And she grew up with this idea of making was just a part of a way of life for her family and for her. And so she brought that values to our family. So she, like growing up, I would see her making jewelry, like doing lost wax casting. She had a loom for a while, and she was weaving. What else? All sorts of things. She did metal work. I would see her brazing copper pipe. She painted. She was always teaching kids and um, ceramics. She has a kiln still, and she'll fire up some stuff and with the kids. Like my kids go over to her house, and she does pottery with them, and then they're fire some stuff up. And oh, this is what Nana did with us, making things. And so she's always has something going on. Oh, and my dad, he loves to garden. He would always have this really big garden in the background. So they kind of taught me this way of self-sufficiency, that you don't always have to rely on um, the consumer way of life, especially in the US. They live very frugally. They still do. My dad is a very good cook, and he cooks all the time. And so we kind of grew up with this sort of lifestyle of making in the form of food or in the form of art or creating in the background. And so that really shaped my ideas and thought, my worldview. And they encouraged my art, that I had an interest in art. So my dad would drive me to classes every Saturday morning down to like downtown Philly, and I would take classes there, like in addition to things. And it was just really nice to be encouraged in that, and not necessarily like that's one thing. Like I think a lot of parents normally push their kids to something more, like something that would be successful for their kid. And obviously visual arts are not like the big money maker.
But yeah, but that's interesting, isn't it? Because I think now our generation, we're starting to talk a lot more. Not everyone, but people in general are starting to talk a lot more about happiness over money.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think you kind of parents you had. I think they had the right track. They were doing the right thing. I think.
Oh, yeah. Um, and I think they still do. I think they're still very encouraging to whatever we end up doing. It's always been nice to have that support. So, but when I was in high school, we moved to Texas, and things kind of changed a little bit, shifted in my high school career. That's weird to say, career. That's, that's not what I mean at all. That sounds silly. But I had some really great teachers who, like a physics teacher and a calculus teacher, and I kind of got sucked into that physics and math, and I really enjoyed it. It kind of made the world make sense to me, like, oh, like these kind of big realizations. And when you're a teenager, and to have something finally make sense of things really kind of pushed me towards engineering when I went to college. So I ended up doing engineering rather than art. But so that kind of took a back seat in a lot of things. But it was still there. It just didn't necessarily come up when I was studying engineering. So that, but I mean, eventually it came up. But yeah, so I studied engineering at a public school in Texas, university here, and ended up sticking around and getting my master's. And then when I graduated, the like economy was crap. It just went to shit. And so I think the only company that was hiring at the time was like an aerospace company. And I ended up working for NASA through that aerospace company. So that was it's pretty exciting.
That is like right now, that is like probably the coolest thing. There's so many makers like, oh my God, I've just fallen in love with Lindsay. She worked for NASA. Oh my God. Look.
It was so unreal. Like it just was the weirdest thing to because I know so many people were I when I started in engineering, I did not think I'm going to be an engineer so I can work for NASA. Like to me like that seemed like a intangible job. Like something like saying something like, "Oh, I'm going to be president of the United States," like that. It just felt so um like something that's only meant for special people. So it was crazy to be able to work for NASA and get this job. It was really unreal. Um, it was such an amazing opportunity, and it was, I would say, like out of all the jobs I've ever had in my life, that was obviously the best one. uh, so yeah, I so the reason why they were hiring. So this was the other thing is the reason why they were hiring was they had the Columbia accident a year before, I believe. And so they had stopped flying the space shuttle. The shuttles were grounded. And so they were ramping up all this testing. They wanted to have a rigorous model of debris impacts to the thermal protection system on the space shuttle. And so they were just running a huge amount of tests, collecting a lot of data. They needed more analysts to study the stress and thermal structure, the thermal, what the thermal, oh my gosh, gradients on the structure causes failure to the structure. And so I was hired along with a lot of other new hires, and so it was just a really crazy time uh, during that time. There was a lot of new hires, and we were very busy, like working long hours, but it was a lot of fun. Like it was intense. It was intense. Many years of work, and I loved it. It was really fun. Um, we got to the testing was like shooting foam and ice and all this stuff at Space Shuttle Tile. And
That's so awesome.
so it was pretty much like the largest potato gun you've ever seen in your life, and putting like a foam bullet in it, like in about the size. And well, we tested foam and we tested ice, and we had different test setups. Like one in White Sands, New Mexico, was one test setup. We were doing like high like ballistics there at White Sands. Some like we were trying to simulate micrometer impacts to the thermal system
Huh.
there. So it's going super fast, and I'm sure you can find pictures online. It's pretty insane. And then like we had some going on in Florida, and we had some going on in Texas as well. So I got to travel all over and get to be part of the testing and all that stuff. So it was really fun. And then we were able to develop our models, and then obviously the space shuttle started flying again, and then I was part of the debris assessment team. So we were part of a pre-launch, which was you look at the space shuttle, you look at what's going on the launch pad real time. So you're there at like 4 a.m. and you're working like a 12-hour day, and you're looking at all the possible projectiles that could come right at the space shuttle. And then you have to do like a real-time analysis and make sure like, okay, that ice ball right there, that might cause serious damage. We might have to scrub the whole launch because of that one snowball, which was pretty, it made your job kind of intense because you have so much riding on this. Like, it costs a lot of money just to do a launch. And if like that one ice ball, you're like, nope, we can't launch, you're kind of worried a little bit how the managers would come down on you. But at the same time, it was also a time where they listened to our input. It wasn't like a thing where people ignored that. And so yeah, so that was really a lot of fun doing mission support. It made for some intense nights, and but the camaraderie there was pretty cool.
I just like I just had this weird vision of like a Russian like plane just like throwing ice balls out the window as they're he's like,
Oh no.
take that, you dirty Americans.
uh you know what, as far as like how much conflict there is between US and Russia, the one place where we get along is through the International Space Station. And
Right.
it's so weird. It is the weirdest thing. And it's annoying too, because our astronauts get along really well. Our American and Russian astronauts get along really well. Or cosmonauts, astronauts,
Yeah.
okay, whatever. The guys in space. They seem, or at least they seem to get along really well. They have to. So, and we rely on them right now. But yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Um, what so you've now finished that working with NASA, right? You know.
Yeah, I worked, so I had my first child in 2008, my oldest. And during that time, I realized, well, not during that time, looking back, I realized for about a year after I had my son, I went through a time of postpartum depression, which I think a lot of moms experience having a child. And but during that time, I didn't realize what I was going through. So I had reduced hours at NASA, so I was working pretty much part time. Was getting very little sleep, but I was still involved in the mission support, and I ended up working for the space shuttle program till the very end of the program, which was 2011. And then I decided, and during that time when the space shuttle program ended, a lot of the guys in my group, some of them stayed and worked on the next vehicle for spaceflight. But a lot of the people ended up having to leave NASA, and they ended up working totally different jobs, doing maybe commercial planes, um, in like St. Louis, or going over and doing completely like going over to oil, or going over to like selling computer software. Like, it was, everyone just started following the paths that they were interested in. And it
Mm.
was really interesting to see that. And the path I was interested in was art, and going back to my roots and making, and really exploring that avenue of things.
Yeah, so
And
that's how you got back into your creativity side of things after your childhood and upbringing.
right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, there was a couple times during my career with NASA that I was part of like this art show with a friend of mine who worked at the same aerospace company that I did, and she and we like had our own art show in a bar downtown, and that was kind of like my first taste at like, oh, like people like to see my art. That's pretty cool. And
Were you
but
making art with like space shuttle tiles or something? Because that would have been so freaking cool.
oh, that's the like most expensive artwork ever.
Yeah, you could charge a mint for it.
But you know what? Spatial tile is hand painted, painted by hand. Every spatial tile is painted by hand.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because the people who spray the tile, they spray it, they know the exact thickness of the paint that's supposed to go on, and they just know by feel. And it was even better than the robots that they had at the time, which was wild to me. So,
Holy crap.
yeah, actually, I brought a show and tell thing.
Oh, please show us.
This is a spatial tile.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, so cool.
When the program ended, so this is I might get in trouble. I don't know. Maybe I will. So they were passing out all this memorabilia of like they have all this stuff in storage. It's just going to sit in a box in a room. So they decided to pass out all the spatial tiles to all the people on the debris assessment team. And so I got now this is one of the tiles they made for our test setup. So this one hasn't flown. And the reason why you can tell is normally you'll see like a white circle right here.
Yeah.
Well, there isn't one. And that circle is to show you like they put in this sort of like they have a syringe and they put in this like they stab the tile with it to keep it, water from collecting in the tile so that when it goes through reentry, the heat doesn't just make it pop off.
Yeah.
Sorry, a lot of information. Don't need to know. So anyway, this is not a flown tile. This is just one of the ones, but it still is like it's a tile, and someone painted this by hand, and unreal. So this gets to sit in my office.
That's super cool. You had me lost at tile, but you know
It's okay. Maybe someone on the pod, maybe one of the listeners will know what I meant. Sorry.
Well,
I
actually,
try not to get too technical.
submarines are covered in tiles as well, right?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah. Submarines are covered in rubber tiles to
Oh,
to deaden the acoustic side of things. So the whole submarine is covered in rubber tiles. Every space or structure that is steel is generally has some sort of rubber tile on it.
oh,
So
that's so wild.
mm,
Cool.
yeah, so it's and what would happen is sometimes when we were underwater for a long time, we called them cookie cutter sharks, and but I don't know exactly what type of fish they were, but they were fish that would eat the rubber tiles, and they would be about oh yeah 4 or 5 centimeter like circular like pieces of tile missing from everywhere, like all over the place, because these fish were sitting there chomping away at the submarine when we were going at low speed and just creeping around the place. So yeah, they loved it. They thought it was good fun. It was like a like a pacifier for a fish, you know?
Yeah, right. Gets out all that nervous energy.
Yeah. Moving back onto the podcast. No,
Oh, yeah,
that
that's what I'm on. Okay.
yeah, we're on a podcast. I know, right? So let's talk about some of your work you do now. What's your core and what do you love doing?
Well, so I do, well, it's kind of weird. It just depends on the season that I'm in. I do painting. I've done like large scale paintings before. And lately I've been mixing light and painting. So that would look like LEDs, and I'm incorporating that into my artwork, and uh, that's been really fun and exciting. Lately, though I haven't been doing that. That was probably a month or two ago, and now I'm into jewelry making, specifically metalworking and with copper and brass. I use the techniques I've learned through blacksmithing and I apply that to my jewelry making. And I'm also a blacksmith, or at least I always feel like I'm always a beginner blacksmith. And I don't know, for a lot of the blacksmiths out there, like, when did you feel like you could say you're just a blacksmith and rather than a beginner blacksmith? And so that I always kind of struggle with that, because there's so much to it to learn and to practice. And so I guess I feel like I'm a practicing blacksmith. I guess that's a good way to put it. Um, and so I really enjoy blacksmithing. That's been something I've been doing for about 5 years now. And I've really enjoyed that. Lately, though, I haven't been able to do it because we are shut down and our makerspace is only doing essential type work. I'm doing like face shields and stuff like that. So I can't access my forge.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
With the whole beginner thing, like, I've like, I didn't know when to call myself, like, change from, like, beginner creative genius to creative genius. Like, I just didn't know when to, like, draw that line. So I just decided I'd just jump straight in and just call myself a creative genius. So, I think that's probably the same approach. You just gotta say, "I'm a blacksmith," and then people will go,
Mhm.
"Alright,
Yeah,
Lindsay's a blacksmith."
right. Yeah. I think actually that's what on my Instagram, I think I changed it. I removed beginner because I was like, well, you know, if someone wants to, say that, that's fine, but I'm not going to say it about myself. So, yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
fully believe in that, because the other side of things is you're a maker, which actually makes you a different way of thinking. You're not someone that just, like, if someone asked you, "Can you make this?" You would never say no. I'm guessing. I'm guessing you say, "Let me look into that," and
Oh,
then you'd
yeah.
be intrigued, right?
Yeah. I'm such a sucker for that too, especially if it's something I've never done. I'm like, oh, well, now I have to do it. Like,
Uh
it
huh.
feels like a challenge. And I've been always been one to never, and that's the thing is like, I get, sometimes it kicks me real bad if I get into something that I've never done and I'm failing at it. But luckily that hasn't really happened very much. But I know a couple years ago, a friend of mine at our makerspace, he was like, "Hey, um, my wife is on the board of our library, and they're looking for someone to do a mural." Uh, and I thought of you, and I thought, oh, it would be fun if you put LEDs in it. And he's kind of telling me what he wants the mural to be, and I'm like, no, no, no. You don't tell me what it's going to be, but I'll set up a meeting with them. But I know I'm going to say no. I'm like, okay, I have a plan. I'm going to say no right when I meet with them. It's not, it's I go, I sit, and they talk with me about 30 minutes into it, and I'm just dying. I'm like, yes, I want to do it. Like, yeah. Oh, this will be so cool. Like, and it had all these challenges. It was going to be in the stairwell, and the ceilings were 30 feet tall. And I'm just thinking of possibilities like, oh, this would be cool if we do this or this. And then I was just getting excited about incorporating the LEDs into it. And even though I've never done a mural as big as this one, and I've never incorporated LEDs in a public artwork display. And so but I was so excited about it that I was like, forget it. I'm going to do it because it needs to be done and I want to do it. So I feel like that's how I approach a lot of those projects, uh, with that. And so far, it hasn't been bad. It has never been a bad experience. So,
But it forces you to learn, right? Because
oh,
we
yeah.
talked about this, about the my devil projects, the sofa beer fridge. The
Yep.
story for those guys that don't know, the sofa beer fridge is actually for someone else. Now, a friend of ours, he lives up in the city of Oslo. I went to visit him. He said, "Can you build me a fridge in my sofa?" And I said, "Yeah, that sounds a bit boring." And so I had a lot of fun sort of expanding on the idea of what this could be. And we all both got excited and it was all fun. And then I jumped on the train to head back down to my city. And then bing, there comes a note on my phone saying that, oh, I've been transferred $400 to
Now
to
you can't get out.
start this project. And I had a bit of a dawning after that. Went, oh shit! And so it's nearly a year now since I started this project. So it's it's been a challenge. Let's just say that.
You'll get through it, you know.
I know I'm going to get through it, and everyone does. I know, like often you can put projects to the side for a little bit, but if
Mhm.
they mean enough for you, you're going to pick them up again, and you'll just keep on going with them. So yeah.
Totally.
um, how did you actually? I want to go back to blacksmithing. Like,
Mhm.
how did you get into that? I mean, it's not often you don't hear many. Like, okay, you hear a lot of people in the maker community, but for
Mhm.
you being an artist and so
Yeah.
on, and then you know, blacksmithing is kind of like you know, kind of opposite to what you were doing before.
Right. So I think, let's see, I had my daughter in 2012, and during that time, I just felt sort of, I don't know, I liken it to like a midlife crisis. I don't know how else to explain it, but I was really searching for some sort of purpose in my life, some sort of meaning, and and I don't know, for some reason, having my second child and dealing with that whole understanding of postpartum depression, and I didn't want to get into that again. Um, I started seeking out a lot of different avenues of making, and I started like looking for things, and I got into like print making for a while, like with screen printing, and then I got into um, trying to play a musical instrument, which I have a ukulele in my closet. It's going unused right now, so I'll just say that.
Yeah.
That wasn't the best fit for me, I guess I'll say. Um, but I did make a really cool ukulele bag to, for it to sit in.
Like an Adam Savage one that's made out of like space shuttle suits or something.
Oh man, that would be awesome. If only I had someone to get me. No, I have connections, but no, I haven't done that. And so it was kind of weird. I I was hiking around this park with my kids, and we came across this blacksmith group, and they were going to their monthly meetup, and I didn't even realize like people did that anymore, like sit around and over hot coals and hammer metal. Like I didn't realize it was like I had never seen Fortune Fire. I still haven't. I apologize for all the fans out there. I just don't. But I saw them heating the metal and hammering it, and for me, so I studied material science back in college. And so I understood what was going on with the steel and the heat and all that. And so like it kind of married my love of um, material science and that kind of nerdy background that I have, but also like my love of art, because a lot of what they were doing, they were creating something very beautiful um, from something that just what started off as like, square stock of steel. And to me, it was so raw to be able to like just take piece of steel and turn it into something beautiful just by very simple methods. And I loved it. And so the next month I came back and I met some really great, encouraging people. I had mentors who were respectful of me and kind with me. And I think like that combination was really helpful in encouraging me into blacksmithing. Um, and that I'm still very thankful to them. Like I still meet up with them on a monthly basis and we joke around, we laugh, we have a good time. It's always fun.
Can I touch on something here? I'm just thinking.
Yeah.
You come from NASA,
Yeah.
like a real like prestigious, let's just call it prestigious job. Very like there's a lot of ego, there's a lot of, like we're doing important work kind of stuff. Uh and then that all finishes. You probably are coming to something like blacksmithing, for example, new, not knowing
Oh yeah.
exactly what you need to do. Did ego still play, a part, or did you have to be vulnerable and say like, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Oh
I
yeah.
need help.
So yeah. That is a huge thing. In When I worked for NASA, it was very easy to feel like you had an important role. I remember one of my strongest memories was when I was at a coffee shop and I was talking with some friends and they introduced me to this teenager and I find out that his dad is an astronaut and I told him what I did and the kid just looked at me and he just said thank you and like gosh that like made me want to just that was like the whole reason why I was doing it was to protect the lives of the astronauts. And
Mm.
so our job was very meaningful and to but at the same time it definitely helped inflate your ego and um kind of give you this like I'm important sort of idea about yourself, which is total bullshit. It really is like uh and it, so kind of coming out of that I think I did suffer from like who am I, what's my purpose, and dealing with my ego and for a long time um and I do remember this when I first came and met up with blacksmithing. I think I introduced myself at like oh I think I even like said, "Oh, I worked on the spatial." Like, how stupid was that? Like,
Yeah.
because I felt so insecure about my own abilities that
Mm.
I felt like I needed to feel better about myself or feel like I was qualified to be there because I had worked on the space shuttle. It was I feel like very vulnerable right now admitting that, but it just like looking back is so laughable because um, what I have found in the blacksmithing community is that these are like the most humble, well, I shouldn't say for everybody, for most people I know, are the most humble people I've ever met. And they're like salt of the earth people too. And I was thinking, I think the Red Smith, I don't know if you follow him,
Yep.
but he
Yep.
made a bunch of t-shirts. And for each maker like job, he had like a list of all these attributes for that particular one. And for blacksmith, I remember one of them, he wrote humility on it. And that is so true because blacksmithing, if you do it long enough, you will have a breaking point, or at least for me, it was. You will burn up your piece, you'll have a shit day, and your piece will look like crap. Those sort of things. You think you're good at something, and then you'll have an off day and you'll hammer it, and it just looks horrible. Um, or it take like the first time you make a spoon, it takes you 4 hours to make it, and it looks okay, but not that great. Like those sorts of things really help you realize, make you realize, or at least help me realize, um, that it's a very humbling experience, and but it also makes you want to get better, and that's the really nice thing about it. And I remember a time when I was black, like I think it was my second or third class. I mentioned the spoon, making a spoon,
Mhm.
and they had, it was like a big setup. They had these pine logs where so like a lot of times for spoon making, you'll take your hot metal and you'll get it kind of in like a leaf shape, and then you will hammer it into a swage block, and it's just like this big hunk of metal with like a spoon uh concave thing that you hammer your metal in. But if you
Mm.
don't have a swage block, what you would use is like a log, typically made out of pine, and or whatever wood. But I think we just had a bunch of pine, and so they had all these logs set up, and we would hammer our spoon in the log, and that's so much fun because it kind of catches on fire, and you're hammering, and the fire is going everywhere. It's a lot of fun. But when I was there were some guys there who were observing the group because they were like the leaders of Haba, our area blacksmith group. And this guy, and so I'm hammering away, and this guy comes up to me, and I didn't realize it at the time, but he was the president of Haba, and Dana Flanders. And he's actually a really great blacksmith artist, by the way. He's phenomenal. I had no idea any of this about it at the time. So, but he is a teacher, and he goes to like Argentina. He travels all over the world, and he teaches blacksmithing too. I had no idea. It's just some guy who comes up to me, and he comes up to me, and instead of like just giving me advice, which some people do because they think, they're the best. Like, uh, anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But he
Yeah.
comes up to me and he says, he gives me a choice. Like he says, do you want to continue what you're doing and doing, just keep on hammering? Or would you like me to help you give advice? Like I have advice, but you will have to, it's pretty much saying, do you want my advice? Or you can keep on doing what you're doing. Either way is fine. And he kind of just gives that up to me. And so I felt like it was kind of empowering, which was really nice, because that has never happened to me before that. And so I think it kind of, when he stated it, I was sort of taken aback. And I was like, yeah, I really want to learn. And I had to really come to a place of vulnerability to say, yes, please help me. I don't know what I'm doing, or at least I want to pretend that I know what I'm doing. I've read the books, but obviously if I'm doing something wrong, I want to know that I'm doing something wrong, and I want you to help me. Is pretty much what I said. And that was the first time I really asked for help, and it was really freeing. And it was sort of like letting go of that whole space shuttle mentality, ego thing that had built up in me for so long. And he helped me, and it was um it was really freeing. And since then it's been easier and easier to ask for help, ask for advice from people who I trust. I think that's also another thing, to be vulnerable with people who you feel comfortable with, and they will not necessarily lord it over you, that, oh, I know more, what you know is horrible, I know what I know is great. It kind of takes a mature person to mentor someone else, and really take care of that person in a way. So yeah, that was such a great learning experience for me.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm always, like, learning. I never feel like I'm good at anything. I feel like always people are looking at my end result and going like, "Wow,"
Hmm.
"Amazing, Justin," like, "Great job," or whatever, but often like on the daily grind, like I'm ballsing up shit all the time,
Yeah.
and I'm always screwing things up, and like, and I just that perseverance, like, and I never think with my work, I never have I don't know why it's like this, but I never seem to have an ego around my work. I never think I'm better than anyone else with my work. I know my end result ends up being pretty good, but like if you put me next to like I can't forget this moment at Make Essential. I was doing some sewing in the sewing class, right?
Mhm.
And I thought, shit, I've sewn this upholstery and things for these like soapbox cars, and I've done some really nice sewing work. I got on the sewing machine. I started looking at everyone else's work, and I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
shit.
Oh, don't do that.
I'm shit. Like, and my ego took a bit of a smackdown, but it was actually really good because it made me think, okay, well, it's not all about the quality or whatever. It's about what's behind what you're doing as well. So a lot of the stuff I do always has something going on behind it. It's not just the prettiness of something or how well it's done, something like that. So I do like get the ego smacked down occasionally because you do need it.
Yeah. Um, I, it's one of those things where if you get in the trap of comparing yourself to other people and what other people make, you'll get in this endless cycle of, comparison, and I think it's more freeing to just kind of focus on your own work and really try to improve on your own thing, not necessarily to be motivated by, oh, I need to be better than that person or I need to be like that person, but to kind of um, be confident in what you're creating, and that, like you said, whatever the motivation behind that
Mm.
can really shine, show through your work. Yeah, I think that's good.
I was gonna go straight into story time now, but then I just thought, I wonder if Lindsay is that type of person who always does the extra.
Well,
Like, because I'm like a sucker for that shit. I always do something like I can't do the standard thing. Like if I'm in a class or someone tells me like to make it like that, I'm
yeah.
like, fuck that. I'm not doing that. I'm doing it different. I'm doing my own way.
Oh yeah. I'll always. There was a time when I think I was in elementary school, and I always had to do things differently. We were making clown faces for some reason in art class. I don't know. That was the weirdest paper mache clown faces, and everyone in the class, all the kids, made a happy face clown face. And being the weird 10-year-old kid I was like, I'm going to do a frowny face. I'm going to do the sad clown face because I don't want to do, I don't want to be like anybody else. And so I ended up making the sad clown face. And it freaked out my art teacher. It freaked out my fourth grade teacher. They end up calling like my mom. And my mom's an art teacher. She knows me. She knows what I make. And they're like, we just want to let you know your daughter, we're worried about her mental health or something. They weren't using mental health words at the time. I don't know what they said, but my mom's like, yeah, that's normal. Like, that's great. That sounds awesome. And and that's kind of how I am. And I can't make the same thing over and over again. Like I've realized that like with my Wonder Woman cuffs that I've been making, if you look at it, every Wonder Woman cuff is different. And I cannot make this same exact thing. My brain won't allow my body to do it. Like I actually tried it one time and I was like, nope, I'm going to do it this way. I'm not going to make it the same as that one. And it's just, I fall into it so often. Yeah. Got to be different.
I oh, I'm the worst for that. Honestly, I'm like the worst. I sometimes that's why I end up in these horrible situations because always think that I got to do it differently from someone
Yeah.
else. Oh, I got to
And
stop. Actually, no, I'm not going to stop doing that because that's what makes me me. So,
Yeah. I
Uh,
think, yeah, for some of the stuff I have learned to learn from some of my mistakes to do what people like find the best practices. Like I have caved in certain areas. So like even Instagram, people were like, "Oh, you should do Instagram." I'm like, "Nah, it's not for me." That was years ago. I was like, "No, I'm not going to do it specifically because you told me to do it." and and I don't know. And then I caved in.
well,
Oh well.
look what happened when you did.
I know. I get to meet actually that was been really exciting. That was the best thing about Instagram is opening up the international community of makers. Like that
Mm.
has been such a cool experience for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah,
Same for me, actually. It's been great. So, let's go into story time, Lindsay.
sure.
Story time. She stared at the gown and thought, yes, this is something my husband would wear.
You got a story for us?
Yeah, I do have a story. It actually goes back to the NASA days because I don't my memory for the past 11 years is crap, so I have to go back before that.
Just rub it in our faces again. I was at
No, no.
NASA.
No, no, no. It's
Look at my
not
space
at
shuttle
all.
tile.
It's totally a self dep anyway, it's,
I'm
so
joking, look, I'm joking.
it was I know. So it's probably like the first 6 months I was working for them, and I'm such a grunt worker. If someone tells me to do something, I do it immediately, and I'm, like running around doing whatever people tell me to do. And we were over in San Antonio at Southwest Research Institute, and that's where we did a lot of our big foam testing, where we're shooting foam at tile. And these guys, I mean, it was a bunch of, I don't know, like maybe like 20 guys, like all big muscly guys or whatever. And they're goofing off all the time. I mean, they were like seriously working for like we had 15-hour days, nonstop getting this testing done, but they're goofing off in the meantime, waiting for tests to start up. And so one of the things that they did at this group of guys is they would prank each other all the time. And my first week there visiting, I get to know them. They're a lot of fun. And, we saw some pranks and it was a lot of fun. And I was like, there's no way, like, they're not going to prank me. They're like, no way. And being the naive person I was. Uh, and so I think what would happen is we would get these tile arrays from Florida. They would make the tiles and they would ship them over to San Antonio. And they told me, "Oh, we got a shipment of tiles in. Go in the back room and open the boxes and see what we have." And so it was me and like I think another person. And we go back and they're like, "Oh yeah, check that one. We're trying to find this one tile or something like that." I don't even remember what it was. And I open up this box and inside it is a curled up rattlesnake. And and in that moment, I realized what I would do if I ever came across a rattlesnake. And in Texas, there's rattlesnakes everywhere, especially in San Antonio. So, uh, in some ways, it didn't surprise me that I saw a rattlesnake curled up in the box, and I leap backwards. Like I must have leapt 3 or 4 feet backwards in one single jump. And and the other thing is like I did not scream at all. Like I was completely silent. I went like ninja stealth mode because I guess for some reason, like maybe the snake wouldn't get me if I scream. I don't know what, but I just kind of like froze and they just start laughing. They're laughing and laughing because I guess that my face said it all. And then I look again and it's a fake snake. It totally looked real. It totally looked real, but it was totally fake. So they got me. And yeah, so I got pranked. That's my story. That's it.
Sorry, my dog's just drinking a buttload of water right now. She's like, I'm wondering if that's coming across the microphone. I had my microphone muted. She's an
Okay.
old girl. We're glad you told that story because that's pretty much my whole submarine career. It was just pranks all the time. Darling, are you gonna walk? Yeah, just go back to bed, please. Thank you. Come on. Yeah, good girl. Thank you. Yeah, that was definitely my submarine career. Like, just think about young guys got nothing else to do, sitting underwater for months on end.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's go into Inspiration Nation.
Yeah. Inspiration Nation.
Is there any everyday creative heroes that inspire you?
Yeah, I've been following this woman on Instagram. Her name is Victoria Pratt. I believe that's her name. She goes by Blacksmither Vic. So Blacksmither as in how it's spelled, and then VIC at the end of it. And her stuff is freaking incredible. I don't know how long she's been doing blacksmithing, but it's amazing. Right now she's in this clock mode, like she's been making all these clocks, and her textures on the surfaces are incredible. She makes her own dies that she puts in her fly press, and she makes these really great things. And if you go even further back into her work, she's made these pendulums that like kind of sit and they swing, or air comes and moves them, and they just kind of do this really cool kaleidoscope look. And she makes it all by hand, and it's beautiful artwork, and I love it. So I really like her stuff. So yeah, you should go
Cool.
follow her.
I will put a link in the shows for everyone if they want to go check her out. Also, I also want to give a bit of a shout out to some of my GA Nation members. I want to give a shout out to Jürgen Stray for delivering a battery that he ripped out of a sonar something that he was working on randomly, delivered it to my house. He's awesome, amazing. I also wanted to give a shout out to Tim Greenwood from Turgworks. And I wanted to shout him out because he started the Hashdown Lockdown Throwdown, which is like a drawing competition. Well, not competition, but a challenge. And I think that's awesome. Some people have been doing amazing drawings, and I think it's so good. And so I just want to say a shout out to him because he started that all. And, I also want to give a shout out to Stian Sirhus. And the main reason why I want to give a shout out is because he said publicly that I was funny in real life. So I just want to give a shout out to him. All right, that's my shout outs done. Let's go into random question.
Random question.
Are you ready?
Oh, all right. Cool. Yeah.
All right.
I'm ready.
Are you sure?
Yes.
There's no, just because everyone gets upset, people still getting upset. I don't understand.
What do
Like,
you
I've
mean
talked
upset?
that some of these questions don't have specific answers, and I'm like, it's a random question, people. Come on, just take it easy. All right, so here it is, Lindsay. You ready? If you could give a wedgie to any famous person, who would it be?
See, okay. So is this to inflict pain? Like, because I feel like I've really only given a wedgie to like my siblings, probably.
I mean,
And it was to be
depends on the person, right?
Yeah, like I guess to inflict pain, or is it to be like, haha, camaraderie? Like,
what sort of camaraderie give like what you give
I don't
wedgies
know.
for camaraderie? What?
I'm not a wedgie giving person. I can only assume that people who give wedgies do it because they're kind of friends with the other person, not to be a jerk to them, which is a weird thing to
It's
do.
kind of opposite, Lindsay.
Is it?
Yeah.
See,
You give up people a
let me
wedgie
know.
because you don't like them.
Okay. Oh, man. Well, okay. If it's just to be, it's pretty easy. Like I mean, man, but see, I would get in trouble. So would this be with like no repercussions or?
Actually, I want
Um,
to hear both answers. I want to hear answer for if there was repercussions
oh,
and if there wasn't, because I think they're going to be two different people
they
completely.
they would totally be that. Man,
I would so give Trump a wedgie like that.
yeah.
Oh
Well,
man,
yeah. So I would right now, just with all the crap going on, I would definitely pick Trump. But see, I would get that would totally, I would get thrown in jail probably, um, for that. So,
yeah,
but I
but
would,
you'd be marked as a hero around the world.
true. Maybe I could like, I don't know, be
There are
someone,
probably some people listening to this that are
some
actually
country would
fans
let
of
me
Trump.
like
I'm sorry,
stay.
people. I'm sorry, people, if you're a fan, but yeah, majority of the world doesn't
Yeah,
probably think your way, unfortunately.
yeah. So yeah, that would be number one. Um, Number two, well, see, no, everything I would get in trouble for. Yeah. So I'll just go with that one.
All right, cool.
I
Well,
don't
I kind
care.
of answered that for you.
No,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's pretty much the only one I would do.
let's go
So,
into Hack Attack.
This is Hack Attack! I will not apologize for this bad intro.
Any cool tips or tricks for people?
yeah, totally. So I'm a daughter of an art teacher, and she always gives me tips all the time. And I know you've had other people give you tips for different things, and so I'll give you an art tip today. And colored pencils. I don't know if you use them or if other people use them, but so actually, I have two tips with colored pencils. One is don't use the crap Crayola colored pencils to do your work. That you will soon find that you can make better work with Prismacolors. I think they're like the best color pencils out there on the market. But to take care of your colored pencils, I don't know if you've had this where you're drawing and then like the lead just falls out because there's like a crack in it. So one thing to do if you find that you have like cracks in your colored pencil is you put it in the microwave and you run the microwave. You put one colored pencil in the microwave, the one that has the cracks, run it for 10 seconds on high, and it will melt it enough to where it will get rid of all the micro cracks in your pencil, and you won't have the falling lead that comes out of it.
My
That's
mind is
pretty
blown. I would have that. My mind is blown. I love that. No more
So
cracked pencils for me.
no more well,
Microwave, here
no,
we go.
don't do lead. Don't do pencil, just colored pencils.
No graphite.
No graphite. No. That would be bad.
What
So
happens? Have you put a graphite pencil in the microwave?
I would think it. Um, so it's has like it's really conductive, right?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
here's the thing. I have put a light bulb in a microwave
Why?
because I didn't know this. If you put a light bulb and put the metal end of the light bulb in water in a glass and then put it in the microwave, the light glows.
That would make sense. Yeah.
That's so cool. That
Yeah.
was like I don't know, year 7 or year 8, science project or something. I can't remember where I learned that from, but it was good.
Yeah.
It still blows my mind every time I just do it for fun randomly.
Yeah. I'm not going to question what you do home for your own entertainment, especially now during lockdown.
Yeah, COVID-19
People
entertainment.
around
All
the
right.
world will be doing the light bulb challenge.
Oh, that's a TikTok thing for sure. All right. Let's wrap it up, Lindsay. Let's see. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with? So, some sort of saying or philosophy that perhaps you live by?
I just make it up as I go along. I really do. Um, I think it helps to when you're learning and when you're making to be okay with asking questions and to seek out help when needed. I think that's one way you learn and progress. And it not only just helps with your making, but it helps with relationships and it helps with just with character and self. And yeah, and then also like um, and I tell this to my kids all the time because a lot of times my kids will say, I can't do that. Or they'll look at something and they're like, oh, I can't do that. And we try to say instead, I haven't done that yet. Like, I haven't tried it yet, rather than saying, like, because it's so complete, so final. And, um, you know, a lot of times I'll be doing a demo and kids will come up and they'll see me doing the blacksmithing and I'll just say, I had to learn to do these things. Like there was a time when I didn't know how to do these things. And I think, well, you look at certain people and you see how good they are, and you have to kind of realize that they learned and practiced and got to that point in life. It wasn't, they just didn't, they weren't born knowing it. They didn't have the natural necessarily talent of, shaping metal and whatever. It's something that we practice on a regular basis. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's important that kids understand that it's something that is really, really hard for them to sort of understand because often they're programmed by their environment, the parents, other factors to basically be told that, they can't do it. It could be as simple as tying their shoes. Their parents don't have the patience to allow them to tie their shoes. So I'll do it. You can't. They'll
Yeah.
just make a slight comment like, "Oh, you can't do this because we're running late." And so
Right.
they already telling their children subconsciously they can't do things. So I
Yeah.
think it's a really valid point. I love it.
Yeah.
Um, Thank you so much, Lindsay, for being on the show. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Lindsay_creative. And that's where I am most of the time. If you try to friend me on Facebook, I'm sorry, just don't do that. So it's nothing against anybody. It's just it's only on Instagram is where you can find me. So yeah.
Nice. All right, guys. Well, thank you all so much for listening. Before you go all Insta stalk Lindsay, my guests are all just like you, trying their best to follow their creative passion. And, if you want to help them be found by a bigger audience, tell a friend, post on Instagram, share on Instagram stories and Facebook stories, share some posts, and, better yet, leave a review on your podcast platform or this podcast so we can help these makers and other creatives be found by a bigger audience. If you want to be one of the cool kids and join the GA Nation, you can do so by heading over to Patreon. If you can't support the podcast and myself, Garage Avenger, financially, you can help just as much by awkwardly playing the podcast on your loudspeaker at work and by telling everyone that might have a weird uncle that would love the show. If you want to give me some feedback, you can send your DMs to @GarageAvenger on Instagram. Please go check out Lindsay at Lindsay_creative. Until next time, keep pushing yourself, keep ballsing up things, keep learning, get inspired, and I'll catch you on the flip side. All right, we're done.
Great.
You happy?
Yeah, I think so. Are you okay with it?
I loved it. It was great.